Tonight on One Brother's Mind, we're going to see how far the rabbit hole goes. We're going to show you things you didn't know and some things you need to know. Also, we're going to show you some things that may surprise you. In addition, some things that may have you tripping. Or finally, we're going to show you some things you just may not believe. In any event, fasten your seatbelts, get your popcorn ready, and join Katie Smooth here at One Brothas Mind as we take a look and see how far the rabbit hole goes. But remember, always do your own research and you be the judge. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's Katie Smooth coming back at you with another report. Family, we are once again going to take a ride down this rabbit hole. I got some more things that are out on these internet streets that I would like to share with you, family. This is going to be a mosaic, a hodgepodge of different video clips. Most of these clips are going to be several minutes long, so sit back, like I said, get your popcorn ready and enjoy the ride. Some things you may not be aware of. Before we get started, family, I want to suggest that you hit that like button, man. Hit the like button. If you appreciate the content here on One Brother's Mind, smash the like button and share this report on all your social media. Okay? And be sure to be subscribed. You know, and when you share this report with your peoples on your social media, check with them and see if they're subscribed to One Brother's Mind here, because again, we're trying to provide you with information and facts you need. Okay, so without further ado, we're gonna jump right in here, family. This is number 4 on how far does the rabbit hole go. Yeah, we got more for you. So we're gonna jump right in here. Some things that may trip you out. So, all right, let's get it going here. All right, here we go. We're gonna get it together. All right, to start off tonight. This first clip is going to be on basically 7 different experiments that have been conducted on us, family, on us. Now, you may know about this first one that you see on the screen, but the question is, do you know about the other ones as well? All right, so we're going to jump right in and get it going. All right, just a moment. All right, here we go. not a whole lot of commentary on this one, family. This is just to provide you with the information. Especially for my young viewers, they may not be fully aware of this information. But if you already are, stay with me. Let's see if you know about the other 6 documented experiments.
Experiments during slavery.
If you need to, family, press pause so you can really take the time to read through this information. Although it says here, although enslaved blacks were subject to countless cruel and inhuman medical studies and experiments, perhaps one of the most famous examples came from J. Marion Sims, who some still hail as the father of modern gynecology. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, the things they did, the women of whom were operated on 30 times eventually died from infections resulting from the experiments. In order to test one of his theories about causes of trismus in infants, Sim performed experiments where he used a shoemaker's awl to move around the skull and bones of the infants of pregnant women. Again, family, if you need to, just press pause and absorb this information to continue. Not only were slaves owners conducting experiments on slaves, but hospitals posted announcements for slaves to be used in experiments. Yeah.
Holmesburg Prison Program Experiments.
Did you know? From approximately 1951 to 1974, the Holmesburg prison in Pennsylvania was the site of extensive research operations using prisoners as subjects led by Dr. Albert M. Klingman of the University of Pennsylvania. The studies were performed on behalf of Dow Chemical Company, the U.S. Army, and Johnson & Johnson. In one of the studies, for which Dow Chemical paid Klingman $10,000, Klingman injected dioxin, a highly toxic carcinogenic compound found in Agent Orange, which Dow was manufacturing for use in Vietnam at the time, into 70 prisoners. Of course, this was without their consent, family. In the study, Klingman applied roughly the same amount of dioxin as that to which Dow employees were being exposed. In 1980 and 81, some of the people who were used in this study sued Professor Klingman for a variety of health problems, including lupus and psychological damage. Klingman later continued his dioxin studies, increasing the doses of dioxin he applied to the skin of 10 prisoners to 7,500 micrograms. The Holmesburg program paid hundreds of inmates a normal stipend to test a wide range of cosmetic products and chemical compounds whose health effects were unknown at the time. Upon his arrival at Holmesburg, Klingman is claimed to have said, "All I saw before me were acres of skin. It was like a farmer seeing fertile field for the first time." In 1964, issue of Medical News reported that 9 out of 10 prisoners at Holmesburg prison were medical test subjects. In 1967, pause it or rewind it, you can finish that.
Irradiation of black cancer patients.
Okay. During the Cold War, the U.S. and the Soviet Union spent much of their time trying to figure out if they could survive a nuclear catastrophe. How much radiation could a human body take? This would be important information for the Pentagon to know in order to protect its soldiers in the event they were crazy enough to start a atomic holocaust. Enter the seemingly go-to government choice of secret experimentation. Unknowingly, African Americans from 1960 to 1971. It's going pretty fast. Actually, I'm going to pause and I'm going to go ahead and read these. They were studied on. They were not asked to sign consent forms, nor were they told the Pentagon funded the study. They were simply told they would be getting a treatment that might help them. Patients were exposed in the period of 1 hour to the equivalent of about 20,000 x-rays worth of radiation. Nausea, vomiting, severe stomach pain, loss of appetite, and mental confusion were the results. A report in 1972 indicated that as many as a quarter of the patients died of radiation poisoning. Dr. Sanger received a gold medal for career achievements from the Radiological Society of North America. Yeah, family. There's a whole lot of experiments, and these are just the ones that they have admitted to. They've been doing research and experiments on us for centuries.
Eugenics, sterilization.
All right, I'm gonna pause this and try to. Let's see. In 1907, Indiana, my hometown or state, passed the first eugenics-based compulsory sterilization law in the world. 30 U.S. states would soon follow their lead. Although the law was overturned by the Indiana Supreme Court in 1921, almost 20 years, y'all, the U.S. Supreme Court in Buck versus Bell upheld the constitutionality of the Virginia Sterilization Act of 1924, allowing for the compulsory sterilization of patients of state mental institutions in 1927. In the 1970s, several activists and women's rights groups discovered several physicians to be performing coerced sterilizations of specific ethnic groups of society. All were abuses of poor, non-white, and were done without the patient's consent. For example, in 1972, United States Senate committee testimony brought to light that at least 2,000 involuntary sterilizations had been performed on poor black women without their consent or knowledge. Just an additional nugget, family. Katie Smooth, I'm a previous staff member of one of our newest built hospitals here in the city. Starts with the letter E. I'm not going to say their name. Um, they have a history, family. When that hospital was being built, I helped open that hospital. They have a history that goes all the way back to some of the early psychiatric hospitals here in Indianapolis. I'm trying to think of the name of it. They've long since been torn down, but there was some. I can't think of the name of it. Some facilities that specifically were built to house what they called, mentally deprived people, which were black and brown people. And I've come across reports that they literally used to capture people off the streets, whether they had mental issues or not, and do all sorts of experimentation on them, including sterilization. This goes back to the Margaret Sanger group in eugenics. The rabbit hole goes really deep on that, family. It goes really deep. In fact, some of y'all are fans of Hillary Clinton, but yet Hillary Clinton is a supporter and admirer of Margaret Sanger. She actually said that, but yet y'all want to vote for her? Yeah. I ain't gonna go down that rabbit hole no more. But yeah, there is a history. Again, I keep telling y'all, family, that a lot of this information, the historical information, is being wiped from the internet. The reports that I spoke of earlier in regards to that, one of the newer hospitals built here in Indianapolis, Indiana, that information is not available anymore. I found that information probably about a little more than 10 years ago when that facility was first being built. But they quickly went back. I mean, I found it, and I went back a couple months later to try to capture it. It was gone. It went back to the early origins here of Indianapolis, the city, when the downtown was just mud streets. And it was talking about how a previous young doctor of the same name of the facility came to Indiana to study under a doctor that was currently here, and basically they got ran out by the natives. They got attacked and ran out by the natives because they were doing things to a lot of the natives, claiming that they were providing health care, when in fact they was doing a whole lot of other stuff. And I mean, I'm talking, this goes all the way back to the log cabin times in the bush, and so it was a doctor, like I said, it came here of the same name of the facility, and a doctor, he was working under a doctor out of New York at the time, an older doctor as a mentor. And they got ran out. They got chased out by the natives. They received word that the natives was coming for them, and that's pretty much what happened. And they had to grab what they could and bounce immediately. Literally, they were being literally chased out. Arrows flying at them and stuff after a certain point. But that doctor, at that time being young and a new doctor, eventually spearheaded the legislation and the establishment of the eugenics community here in Indianapolis, Indiana. Man, I can't think of that facility right now. Some of y'all know it. Some of y'all know the name of the one I'm talking about. It was around for a long time. Um, and then it just sat empty for a long time. And then they finally tore it down. But um, there was some facilities over there on the some of them were located on the east side of Indianapolis on East 16th Street. To give you some frame of reference, I can't think of the name of the building. It was right on the tip of my tongue. East 16th Street over there, just east of College, 16th and College. If you travel east on 16th Street, there's a whole bunch of new stuff over there now, but and the name, y'all, is right on the tip of my tongue. I can't spit it out. But that area had some of those facilities, and I'll try to share that, pull that video up of that facility in my next rabbit hole series to show y'all. I'll have the name of it then, so stay tuned on that tip. I'll show y'all the name that facility before it was torn down, where they did a lot of those experiments. Okay, all right, let's continue. It says here an investigation revealed that surgeries were all performed in the South and were all performed on black welfare mothers with multiple children. Testimony revealed that many of these women were threatened with an end to their welfare benefits until they consented to the sterilization. These surgeries were a little blurry instances of sterilization abuse, a term applied to any sterilization performed without consent or knowledge of the recipient, or in which the recipient is pressured into accepting the surgery. Because the funds used to carry out the surgeries came from the U.S. Office of Economic Opportunity, the sterilization abuse raised older suspicions, especially among the black community, that federal programs were underwriting eugenics or eugenicists who wanted to impose their views about population, equality, and minorities and poor women.
The Abcade experiment.
You guys heard about this one? I'll pause it for you, family. On the 23rd of March, 1945, 53-year-old Abcade was on his way to work at a construction site for the Manhattan Project when he was involved in a traffic accident at Oak Ridge, Tennessee. He was a cement worker for the J.A. Jones Construction Company. Cade went to the Oak Ridge Hospital with fractures of the right patella, right radius, and ulna, and left femur. He became an unwittingly guinea pig in a deadly experiment, and did not realize the doctors caring for him were also employed by the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission. The doctors had been ordered to find out what exposure to plutonium did to the human body. Injured and helpless in a hospital bed, Eb Cade was injected with .29 microcuries of plutonium-239, more than 40 times the amount a person might expect to be exposed to in their entire lifetime. So y'all clearly know he wasn't the only one. This is just one example. A researcher who worked at the hospital in the 1940s described it as a whopping dose. Years later, in their efforts to see the effects of plutonium, the researchers pulled out 15 of Cade's teeth to measure plutonium levels in his system. They also collected chips of his bones for the study. Held in the hospital for more than 6 months, Cade rightly suspected that it did not take this long for his broken bones to heal, and that he was in fact being kept in a hospital to be used as a guinea pig. So his broken limbs healed. Cade fled the hospital when doctors and nurses were not looking, but he could not escape what the secret nuclear experiments had done to him. Described by doctors when he arrived at the hospital in Oak Ridge as a well-developed and well-nourished colored male in good health, Cade died a few years later of heart failure at age 61. And many of us know, family, this is where we get the whole perspective as the black community of it is never, ever, 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 ever safe for us to have a family member or a friend admitted to a hospital, any of these hospitals, even to this day, and be left there alone without someone.
CDC vaccine.
Without someone watching and caring, paying attention to what the doctors are doing, asking questions. All right, here we go. Reports emerged that the Centers for the CDC and Prevention was hiding results from a test of experimental vaccines that actually increased the likelihood of black children developing autism. Family, I have to be transparent here. This one's hard for me to read because I didn't know none of this information prior to my son's diagnosis of autism. But I'm gonna get through this. Dr. William Thompson, who had been with the CDC for more than 10 years, told the Examiner that the authors of the study manipulated and hid data that proved black babies were more than 3 times more likely to develop regressive autism if they were given the vaccine. Parents of black babies who were receiving the vaccines were not made aware of the risk. I wasn't, to their child developing autism. I was not made aware. I didn't discover this until after my son's diagnosis, when I started doing my research to try to understand and figure out what the hell was going on. What is especially horrendous and disturbing about these revelations is that the CDC had in its possession irrefutable data linking vaccines to autism in the African American children. The agency then went out of its way to alter the data, which they knew would bring harm to countless African American babies. Today, there are thousands of young African American children and teens who grew up with autism due to the CDC's willful scientific fraud. Rather than warning the public of the autism risk of vaccines, the CDC deliberately chose to hide this fact, all while lying to the African American community by claiming that to them that they were safe. Yeah, family. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of details in regards to my son on this issue, but I will say this. My son now has a significant special needs trust that was the result of a lawsuit. I'll say that. Okay? Let's move on. And I'll say it's a trust that I am still fighting for full or total control of to this day, legally. Just because they set out in our award trusts, that's just the first step. That doesn't mean that you're going to be able to have full access to the trust.
Who are the so-called African Americans? We are a nation of people who have been stripped of our land, culture, language, religion, and identity. We are people who have experienced the cruelest forms of mental and physical tortures, people who have undergone untreated trauma that has never been repented of, nor have we ever received counseling for. This has affected most of us in some way or another from generation to generation.
Again, I'm not going to go into more detail of how my family was sorry about that, family, directly impacted. I won't be able to speak, y'all. Let's continue. Going on to the next topic, the next clip. Here we go.
Let's talk about education. In most Western countries, school is compulsory and state enforced. Truancy can result in fines or even jail time for parents. This isn't just a result of state coercion. On a cultural level, education holds a sacred status much like that of religion. This is an institution that most never question, and that's a problem. Did you ever wonder how it is that kids spend 13 years from kindergarten to high school supposedly being prepared for life, yet when they get out, they don't have any real skills? 13 years and kids aren't taught how to grow a garden, how to build a house, how to fix a car, how to balance a checkbook, or how to cook a healthy meal. 13 years and kids come out without even rudimentary concepts of how to organize or lead groups of people, without even a glimmer of understanding of how to resolve conflicts nonviolently. And we call this an education? Yes, we're taught how to read and write and to perform some basic math, but we aren't taught how to think for ourselves. We aren't taught the principles of logic or how to question an ideology. What we are taught is how to sit at a desk and listen obediently as the world is packaged into a neat little box that we are to accept without question. We're taught to regurgitate that information for test, to give the answer that those in authority demand. But most of all, we're conditioned to conform. And the reward for faithfully jumping through all of these hoops for 13 years is a worthless piece of paper that no employer even asks to see. Kids exit high school barely qualified to flip burgers at McDonald's, and even for that, they have to be trained. 13 years is a long time. That's most of our childhood. To have this much time taken by force with such pathetic results is unacceptable. The problem here isn't a lack of funding. The problem here isn't poorly trained teachers, lax regulations, or low-quality curriculum. The problem is our entire educational paradigm. The system isn't designed to prepare children for the real world. It's designed to format their minds and condition them for a life of subservience. It's designed to create a population of individuals just smart enough to fill out paperwork and punch a time card, but too stupid to question the system itself or the authority of those running it. If we want to change course, we cannot ignore this aspect of our enslavement. There's no point laboring to wake up other adults in our lives if we send our children to be programmed by the state. The revolution of the mind must include a revolution in education. If this is a message you feel the public needs to hear, then be sure to...
There you have it, family. Yeah, many of y'all already know this, but, you know, somehow we still are sending our kids to these schools. Why? You know, there are alternatives to this indoctrination. Homeschooling is one. And trust me, I know it comes at a great sacrifice. Katie Smooth, I'm literally, as I speak, I am homeschooling my child as we speak. And my child is thriving and learning far better with me homeschooling than he was learning or getting educated from these school systems. They're not doing much of anything as far as education. And it ultimately turns out to be a significant amount of wasted time. I remember I told my child that's in college right now, there's only two things that are really being taught in these school systems that are of value. And that's math and basic science. Everything else that's being taught in these school systems is somebody's opinion or theory, not fact. Think about it. Pause the video, take time, make a list of whatever you want to put out on your list of what's being taught in these schools. Is it fact? Is it truth? Or is it an opinion or theory or view? Yeah. But we're gonna go on, family. We're gonna continue. There's a lot, y'all. It's a lot to think about in young parents and young people before you even have children. There's a reason why you're here seeing this information ahead of time. Some things you need to seriously consider. You know? And again, I know, especially for many of us, we are single parents for one reason or another. Katie Smooth is. I've raised my kids on my own. And the whole idea of homeschooling is extremely difficult. But it's not that it can't be done. It just calls for some, at the very least, some significant financial sacrifices. But it still can be done. So the question is it worth it? That's the question. Isn't our children worth it? If you have a 2-parent home, yeah, y'all can tag team that thing, work different shifts, And a lot of people are doing it more and more today. You know, because like me, they got a firsthand view of the insanity and non-education that was happening in our schools during we call it the predator. We don't use those words here on YouTube, y'all. That thing that we was dealing with or been dealing with for a little over 2 years that deleted over 1 million people, I should say, here in the US. We call it the predator here at One Brothas Mind. When the school shut down and everybody went virtual, I mean, y'all saw the same thing. We got to see what was going on. We got to see. And that's a no. No, thank you. We can do much better, far better ourselves. All right, we're going to go on to the next one. I digress. All right, here we go. So, family, I just noticed I'm having some sound technical difficulties. I'm going to try to clip this part out of this video and when we go forward, but let me restart that one for you. I just noticed that. My apologies. Having a little sound technical difficulties, but I think we got it straightened out now. So we're going to restart this video.
Now to an almost unthinkable question. Could your employer be betting on your life in order to profit from your death? This is essentially what some companies are doing by taking out life insurance policies on their employees. Our senior national correspondent Claire Shipman has more on this, and we're going, huh? How can this be?
Exactly. Life insurance policies on their employees, but who gets the money when they die? The employer. Robin, we were stunned when we saw this in Michael Moore's latest film. These schemes that really give your employer a reason to literally wish you were dead. But it's nothing personal, just about the bottom line.
Hello, I'm Ed.
Not so long ago, life insurance was pretty straightforward.
You need life insurance protection most right now.
Offering security to loved ones in a tough time. So when Irma Johnson learned her husband Daniel, who died of brain cancer, had been insured for $1.5 million, that should have been at least a small comfort. Except she didn't get the money. His employer did.
You didn't know about it?
No. It's one of the most bizarre free market perversions Michael Moore highlights in his latest film, Capitalism: A Love Story, a corporate practice dubbed Dead Peasants Life Insurance. Companies secretly bet on employees' lives, expecting to make a buck when they die. Mike Myers, the attorney who's uncovered many of the cases and has helped angry relatives sue, says it's pervasive.
Life insurance is traditionally used to guard yourself against the loss of a breadwinner or someone who's very important to you. This is used as an investment scheme.
Myers says dozens of blue chip companies have these policies, but only banks are forced to reveal them. Several have billions of dollars worth. We wondered why companies would even be interested.
The driving force behind it is the tax deductions.
That's right, a tax break. It was designed to let companies insure a few crucial executives, but savvy companies realized they could also get a tax break insuring a lot of lower-level employees. It's a financial scheme that doesn't actually cost the employees anything except, some say, their trust. But Tina Tillman felt shocked, deceived, when a Wall Street Journal reporter told her brother, a music store cashier, was insured by his employer for $339,000 when he died, though he no longer even worked there.
We were just in disbelief that they were able to do it and actually cash the policy, or cash in on the policy.
She sued and won. Now the government mandates companies get employee consent. Amegy Bank told us that Daniel Johnson gave his consent, but Irma Johnson says that's not true, and she's suing. Congressman Gene Green has been pushing for even tougher restrictions. Nobody's really being hurt, but it's so clearly creepy. Yeah. So, how do you get at what really is wrong with this?
Well, we hope our laws are based on not only fairness, but morals. And to me, it's immoral for me to benefit from your death if I don't know you.
Meanwhile, for those who feel wronged and were never told about the insurance, it's up to them to brave the court system.
It was a matter of making sure that we did the right thing and that it was something that would honor our brother. We sent a message across to that company to let them know, you may have gotten away with it all these years, but not this time.
Not this time. And Claire, I don't know if you want to know, but how can you find out if your employer has taken a life insurance policy?
I know, this is one of the problems. It's not easy to find out because until 2006, there was no federal requirement for companies to let their employees know. Now they are required to let them know, but again, the documentation is very hard to come by, and I think until that tax break is gone, companies are going to keep doing it.
Like I said, nothing illegal, but you said it, creepy.
It's just the word of the day.
Yeah, it is
creepy.
The word of the day. We've heard that a time or two. Have a good.
Yeah, family. They're literally profiting at the time of many of our deaths. They are not family. They are not connected to you in any type of descendant or parental way. No family connection. But yet they are turning around and having life insurance policies on many of us. Possibly you. And most of them never disclose that they got them. So when you die, for a lot of people, they collect 2, 3, 4, 5 years worth of the previous salary that they paid you, they recouped that. Man, how far the rabbit hole goes. We're going to continue. We're going to continue. Y'all really didn't know. Got another one for you. I know this is actually a pretty recent situation. There's a report on here. It was probably about a month or so ago, for those that don't know, when the entire EBT or SNAP system for the entire country went down. Here you go.
Action from a local supermarket.
The electronic benefits transfer, or EBT, went down across many states Sunday, leaving customers who rely on SNAP to have to come back later or purchase the items on their own. One grocery store in Hartford says this caused a lot of confusion for customers who were looking to feed their families.
We were also having customers that were coming here hoping that it was working here, but they will face the same problem.
Key Food has been serving Hartford's Frog Hollow neighborhood for 2 years. General Manager Luis Perez says most of their customers rely on assistance from the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, to buy nutritional items off the shelves.
It gives the customers a broader opportunity to buy more items for their families, so that also benefits us.
The electronic benefits transfer, or EBT, is how people purchase their groceries. It's like a credit card. The system was reported down in multiple states Sunday, including Connecticut. Perez says it took about 3 hours for it to come back on.
So we had a lot of customers putting stuff back. We had a lot of items in the front because the customer weren't able to afford it without the EBT.
Many rely on the monthly payments to feed their families.
The SNAP benefits are very crucial to the lives of the families that we serve.
Jendiah Scott Miller is with Angel of Edgewood on the city's north side. The community pantry and cafe helps provide food for those in need, many on SNAP.
Food is very expensive. People struggle with so many different issues in their lives that hinder them from either working or, so many other things to be able to provide for their families.
Scott Miller says it's crucial for people to buy groceries when they need them.
They may be going to purchase baby formula or milk or the essential items to feed their children.
For Key Food, people can buy the foods they need in their neighborhood and not have to travel. Perez says, being most of their business, customers and the store need SNAP to work at checkout. There hasn't been any information released yet as to why this interruption happened. Perez says it has happened before, but never longer than 45 minutes. They even had customers walking out because they couldn't purchase groceries. In the studio, Tony Black, Fox 61 News.
Tony, thank you. We have an update on the Ansonia.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah. So, many of y'all didn't know, didn't catch it, didn't hear about it. And in this report, they said like 3 hours. It was actually over 4 hours in total, and it was nationwide. So the question that you got to ask, family, is, did it go down by accident, or was it on purpose? Was it just a test, just to confirm that it could be taken down? You be the judge. All right, we're gonna keep it going here. Got another one for you. This one is about the history of tipping. When you go out to eat somewhere, you tip your waitress or waiter. Yeah, some of y'all know, but many of y'all do not. Here you go.
Did you know that in these United States of America, the federal government says that it's okay for you to earn $2.13 an hour if you're also earning tips?
New generations are growing up to carry on and perpetuate the American tradition of liberty and equality.
How? You can't even get on a bus in New York City with that. Today's baggage, tipping, minimum wage, and the fight for economic justice. Minimum wage and tipping have long been a hotly contested debate in American politics. Today, Uncle Sam sets the minimum wage at $7.25 an hour. The sub-minimum wage for tipped workers is $2.13 and has been on ice for decades. This means that in 15 states in Puerto Rico, tipped workers take home just enough for a pack of gum, one taco at Taco Bell, or a carton of half-dozen eggs, a mere pittance for their labor. Now, why does this matter? Aside from the fact that we're talking about people's livelihoods, like whether or not they can provide for themselves and their loved ones, it's been in the news, of course. The $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill that had folks out here waiting for their stimmies to drop was first introduced with a federal minimum wage of $15 an hour. It also eliminated the sub-minimum wage of $2.13 an hour. And in pure partisan fashion, Senate officials shut the proposed minimum wage hike all the way down.
All the studies show you're actually going to lose more jobs.
The last thing you do is increase the cost on businesses.
So we'll be fighting this in every way that we can.
Some Democrats like Bernie Sanders say that they will continue to fight for 15. And that's not a bad idea, because the history of tipping in America is racist. Let's take it on back. Tipping began in feudal Europe. Aristocrats and nobles mainly used the practice, and it was eventually brought to the United States by Americans who visited Europe and wanted to seem cultured.
Yeah, bruschetta. Why are you saying it that way? That's how it's supposed to be pronounced. People like it when you embrace their culture.
Stateside, tipping caught on in the 1800s, and following the Civil War, spread throughout the country. Emancipated black men often worked as Pullman porters on trains, while black women worked in restaurants. And despite being freed, both groups were first exploited and denied wages, only working for tips. That was until the Pullman porters organized the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, the first black union in the United States. They went on to earn an actual wage, but this wasn't the case for black women and other folks.
What happened at emancipation with the wage basically going to zero, with the idea of tipping being mutated from an extra or bonus on top of the wage to becoming the wage itself, to becoming a replacement for wages, really cannot be understood as anything other than a devaluation of Black lives and women's work.
Saru Jayaraman is the president of One Fair Wage and the director of the Food Labor Research Center at the University of California at Berkeley. Jayaraman is also the author of Behind the Kitchen Door and Forked, a new standard for American dining. She says that even after the nation established a federal minimum wage, certain citizens were still left out of the question.
And so that became law in 1938 as part of the New Deal, when everybody got the right to the federal minimum wage for the first time, except for millions of black workers, farm workers, domestic workers, and tipped restaurant workers who are told you get a $0 wage as long as tips bring you to the full minimum wage.
So we've seen the minimum wage for tipped restaurant workers go from nothing to 25 cents with the New Deal, unless you're black, to a whopping $2.13, which is the current standing. The fact that we've only seen a $2 increase to the minimum wage since its inception generations ago can only be explained by greed, money, and power. And it includes the influence of a trade lobby called the National Restaurant Association, or the NRA, not to be confused with the other NRA. It's a lobbyist organization that represents restaurants like IHOP, Applebee's, and Olive Garden.
If you ask the American public, should tipped workers get a full minimum wage? Should people, regardless of race and gender, get a full minimum wage when they work? People overwhelmingly say yes. but the desire to be able to get away with paying people $2 an hour, it trumps that. And the willingness of legislators to let that trade lobby have this incredible exemption trumps that, because of this echo chamber that legislators are in, and because they get paid by this trade lobby in terms of their campaign contributions. It is the most disgusting travesty.
The impact of this corruption is painfully clear when we take a look at the numbers. In terms of tipped workers, 41% are people of color. Women represent 66% of tipped workers, and 37% are mothers. Pay inequities across race and gender are the result of 3 factors. First, women and people of color are overrepresented in casual dining or cheaper dining establishments, and this means that they're paid less. Next, Black and brown workers who make it to fine dining or upscale restaurants often work in the back of the house because racism. And color me surprised, but Black workers receive less in tips than their white counterparts.
Whatever you do,
Black women in New York and Massachusetts make $7.74 and $7.79 less than white men, respectively. Ultimately, these Black women earn just 60% of what white men earn.
We must be committed to building a...
All right, family. Yeah. Did you know? So, isn't it true that if you, or as you tip your waitress or waiter, even today, you are contributing to modern day slavery? I'd rather encourage the waiters and waitresses to strike and demand full pay at the very least. Yeah. All right, y'all. We're gonna continue. This next clip is gonna be a little short one, but I want y'all, I'm sharing it with y'all because I want y'all to really pick up on a couple of things in this clip. This is a clip from 60 Minutes Hurricane Katrina coverage. Like I said, it's only going to be this one's going to be pretty short, but I want you to focus in on what happened to the Black people who were escaping Hurricane Katrina after the storm, when they were trying to make it into other areas that weren't hit as hard, okay, or the other areas that weren't flooded as bad as well. Check this out. It's not one to act right for me. Of course. Try this again.
And post.
The gentleman came out and identified himself as one of the commanders. And he said, I have a solution. I have buses waiting for you across the bridge.
With that assurance, they joined hundreds of other people who were walking towards the bridge to Gretna. These pictures were taken, and they were stopped with a shotgun blast. What was your reaction when you heard the gunshot?
I was scared at first. I've heard gunshots before because I live in an inner city area, but not a shotgun, and I was concerned about my safety and those who were with me.
One of the people on the bridge with Kathy Golden was Sharon Holloman.
Did you see the police fire their guns, or did you just hear them?
We saw them. We were close enough to them. They had racked their shotguns and let off a warning shot. We were this far away. As far away from you as I am.
Don't want us to put this information out. So they're messing with our stream connection like crazy right now, family. So if it's really bad and messed up, really bad, I will within a few hours re-upload a cleaner version of this report. So stay with me, but we're gonna try to get through this.
One, we're not going to have any Superdomes over here, and this is not New Orleans.
What did that mean to you?
To me, that was code language or code words for we're not having black people coming into our neighborhood.
With nowhere to go, they set up a makeshift camp in the middle of the highway. These pictures, taken by the evacuees, show some of the children who were there. The plan was to spend the night on the bridge and the next day try to cross again. But then a vehicle with Gretna police markings drove up.
He sped down in his cruiser, and over the loudspeaker, he just continuously said, "Get the off the bridge."
What?
"Get the off the bridge," and would point his gun at some people.
He pointed his gun.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, a helicopter dropped close to the encampment, and its downdraft blew things everywhere, forcing the evacuees off the bridge. They believe that the motive was racism.
Why do you think you were turned away?
I think because the group was 95% African American.
Is that the way you all feel?
Yes.
Definitely.
Do you have any evidence to support that?
A group of people trying to leave the city that's...
Because racist community, that some people may assume that because we live in the South, because we're in New Orleans, that that's just the way it is.
Ronnie Harris is the mayor of Gretna. He spoke with us because he feels strongly that the Gretna Police Department's actions on the bridge had nothing to do with race and have been greatly misunderstood.
Our community is one that understands compassion, one that understands that we have to give where we can, but when there is none, you have to take care of your own population first. And that is what we were faced with.
Gretna is a middle-class suburb whose population of 17,500 is mostly white, but there is a substantial black minority, 35%. According to the mayor, from day one after the hurricane, Gretna was in no position to help outsiders.
The city of Gretna was completely on its own. Our entire services were disrupted. No city services, no electricity. We had no shelter. We had no medical services. We were hit by Category 4 hurricane. What were people expecting us to do?
And on day one, had you heard about the looting and that had started in
I
New
saw
Orleans?
brief reports, and quite frankly, I was embarrassed to see the free-for-all of not taking food and water, but goods and items, vandalism, civil unrest, civil disobedience, and it sickened me.
Fires have broken out across the New Orleans area, most of them started by looters.
And the looters are just about anybody, from old men to little girls.
The mayor's image of New Orleans came from media reports like these that emphasize chaos, anarchy, looting, and violence.
Who's next? There are also reports of rape and violence.
If you're in New Orleans at night, you stand a good chance of being shot.
So this environment of police officers being shot, citizens lying dead in the street, images of looting going on in the city of New Orleans.
Most Americans don't know.
These commercials, family.
Made me realize that our community was in a crisis far greater proportion than just of the hurricane.
His concern increased on Wednesday when thousands of people from New Orleans, mostly desperate poor African Americans, started walking across the bridge towards Gretna.
It started as a trickle, then it began quite heavily. From our estimates, between 5,000 and 6,000 people amassed on the west bank of the river. Now that's our side of the river, the Gretna side.
The number of people fleeing the city was so large that the Gretna police commandeered transportation to bus them out of town. Over the next 24 hours, the police say they bused 6,000 evacuees from New Orleans. At the same time, police were on guard against reports of looting.
All of this was crashing down on all of us who were in charge, had to make decisions in a crisis mode.
And that's what led to the police chief's decision to seal off Gretna?
Something had to be done.
Did the police chief consult with you before he sealed off the town?
It was his decision, of which I supported wholeheartedly.
We had to make a decision because we did not have the wherewithal to continue and to evacuate thousands and thousands of more people.
Glad to see you made it.
Arthur Lawson is the chief of police in Gretna. We wanted to ask.
Okay, fam, so you see what occurred there. There are several reasons why I'm sharing this video report, this clip with you, family. One, basically you see what they did. For most of y'all already get it, okay? But to go even further than that, they showed you, they started chartering, they got buses lined up, so as evacuees came into the area, they were basically just busing them to other areas and cities that had resources, that had help for the evacuees, the people that had lost everything, right? All that was required was basically to continue doing that, right? If you don't have, according to their reports, if you believe that, if you don't have the resources there to help the evacuees that are coming in over the bridge, just keep the buses on a steady loop. Get the people to areas and places where there is help, right? But no, that got shut down. Why? It was working. So they can't, you see how they it's called double speak, family. They say one thing and then they say something else completely contradictory to the first thing that they said. They said, we have buses chartered, we got them in, and we're taking people to places and areas where they could get help. But then the police chief went up and stopped people at gunpoint from coming in, seeking help. That's completely contradictory. Double speak. Fork tongue speak. Serpent tongue speak. Okay, family? And in addition, the people coming out of New Orleans going into this area was not, it got hit by the storm too, but it wasn't flooded, completely flooded like many parts of New Orleans where the black people lived at. So at the very least, if you got nothing else, you got dry land. You got facilities like schools and other warehouses and things that could be quickly set up as shelters, dry shelters, if nothing else. You know, while you await or continue your bus trains that are going in and out, taking people to places where they can get resources and they can get help. Why not just keep doing that? Yeah. So the other reason why I shared this video with y'all, family, is because, especially with things that are going on today, here in 2022, as things continue to get worse, You know, a lot of people are preparing for SHTF, right? Especially to my B1 family. Y'all, if things get as worse as most of us are, get as bad as most of us are expecting them to get at some point, what do you think is going to happen? When today you can pretty much go all over your city and into other counties and whatnot and search and shop for the resources that you need. But as things become, the shortages get greater and things become worse, what do you think they are going to do in these suburban areas? What you think y'all gonna just still, family, y'all gonna still be able to just drive into these suburban areas and go shop and pay for the resources that you need? Or is something else gonna happen? Yeah, you better keep your eye out. You better keep a watch. Keep a good watchful eye for what's going on and the things that could be happening, and probably Katie Smooth believes they will happen. Okay? All right, y'all. We're going to keep this train rolling. This one I wanted to share with you. It's from a documentary called The Corporation. I'll share with you a little clip about it because a lot of y'all still to this day don't fully know and understand what a corporation actually is. So we're going to jump this off because you need to know. And then we'll come back and chop it up. All right?
My job is to make college easy.
Sorry about that, family. Get rid of these commercials here. Bear with me just a moment. Yeah, so you really need to understand, you know, the corporation has no soul. It's a person, legally. It has all the same rights you have, but it has no soul, no morals. It's moralless. It has no humanity. You know, no connection with the people, no human connection. It's solely driven by profit, bound by profit. It also doesn't have most of the legal accountabilities or legal or moral accountabilities that you have. So how they gonna have something, create something that has all the same rights you have, but is not held accountable the same that you are? That's what they did. Okay? Yeah, you better do your research. Again, this documentary, it's called The Corporation. Highly recommended here at One Brothas Mind. All right? We're going to keep it going. And don't even get me started on corporate welfare. Again, being a person, they have all the rights to the same thing you have. There is a such thing as corporate welfare. Just like there's welfare for regular people and regular citizens, there's welfare for corporations. But it's different. Same name, but it's different because as a person, as a citizen, you have to qualify. You have to show the financial qualifying need to qualify for welfare assistance, right? Corporations don't have to do that. They get welfare and tax breaks from states and cities as motivation for them to build their offices or warehouses or whatever it is there in those cities, because the city wants that company to have a location there. It's not that that company doesn't have the money and wealth to build its own facilities, the cities and states are in bidding auctions as to who's going to offer the company more corporate welfare, more free money, more of the money out of your pocket and mine's, free money and tax breaks to the corporations. Again, these are the ones, they have all the money they need. But this is what they do. They give them corporate welfare and then run audits and try to throw everybody they can that's getting an extra $50 or $100, scamming or legitimately or not, out of the welfare system. But they give millions of dollars in corporate welfare to these already wealthy, already financially secure corporations that have the same rights that you have. Yeah, family. Oh, how far the rabbit hole goes. So we're going to move forward. In this next one, family, this next clip, I've been telling people about this information that you're about to see here for a good number of years. I'd say almost 10 years or more. It's about DES. DES, there's a medical name for this drug, but it's a drug that was prescribed for years that you're about to see, that basically not only can, or in many cases caused cancer in the patients that are people that use this drug that it was prescribed to, but it was so toxic, it also raised the risk of and caused cancer in many of those people's children and their grandchildren. Okay? I'm gonna share this clip with you, and then I got another clip after this one on this same subject, and then a couple of article notes that I'm going to share with you. There's a lot here, family. I'll put it this way. There's a lot of reasons out there as to why people are coming down with just this cancer and how cancer has exploded. This is one of them, family. This is one of them. Did you know? Here we go.
Diethylstilbestrol, commonly known as DES, is an estrogen. It was thought that its administration would combat hormonal imbalance in cases of low levels of natural steroid hormones. In 1953, a clinical trial showed that DES was ineffective in the prevention of miscarriages and premature births. Despite this, DES was prescribed by doctors as the pregnancy wonder drug into the 1970s. April 22, 1971, Mass General practitioners reported a link between DES and vaginal cancer. It was associated with causing a rare cervical cancer in the daughters exposed in utero, known as clear cell adenocarcinomas. The drug was also responsible for the increased rate of infertility and pregnancy complications seen in DES daughters due to womb malformation. This discovery led to the development of a cohort study involving the mothers who originally took the drug. A relationship between DES exposure in women and increased risk of breast cancer was found. It was suspected that a similar relationship occurred in DES daughters. DES sons also seem to suffer from an altered reproductive tract development. Exposure was linked to testicular hyperplasia, semen abnormalities, cryptorchidism, and epididymal cysts, as well as a suspected increased risk of testicular cancer. At present, little is known about the implications of DES exposure for the third generation. As the third generation is not yet at an age where reproductive tract abnormalities are likely to be recognised, research was attempted using mice. These trials showed an increase in lesions of the testes and occurrence of tumours in the reproductive tract. In human trials involving DES grandchildren, an association between a family history of DES exposure and the risk of developing hypospadia in males was suggested. So what now? The Food and Drug Administration formally acknowledged that the widespread prescription of DES was, quote, a tragedy. As it continues to affect the lives of multiple generations, this is a prime example of incorrect trialing, leading to the distribution of a new and inappropriate drug.
All right, family. I'm going to hold my commentary till we get through this second clip. All right, here we go.
This was the ultimate survival food of our...
They got me. Give me just a moment, family. All right, here we go, family.
Scientist or researcher, but I am a DES daughter and the aunt of 2 DES granddaughters, the daughters of my brother, who's a DES son. So research into any potential adverse effects of generational DES exposure is close to my heart. For over 40 years, DES Action has kept a record of the kinds of health questions asked by our members and inquirers. For many years, questions were primarily about adverse reproductive tract changes, cancer, and infertility in DES daughters. However, because of, as we've heard, how many years DES was given to pregnant women, and I want to point out that even though DES essentially was banned for pregnancy in 1971, or for use during pregnancy in 1971, it was not withdrawn from the market. DES had first been approved for other uses, so it was still available, and there were still doctors who gave women.
I'm going to show you some information on the approved for other uses here in just a moment, family.
DES during their pregnancy, and I know of DES daughters and sons born into the early 80s. But because of this large age range, even from 38 to 71, of the prenatally exposed DES men and women, we had a large age range of questions. And so questions started about DES grandchildren almost as soon as DES Action was formed 40 years ago. Most of those questions came from the mothers and the fathers of this third generation, the DES sons and daughters, rather than directly from those generationally exposed. And I have to say that continued throughout the years I worked with DES and continue to work with DES Action. But I want to give you some of the examples of the kinds of questions DES received about DES granddaughters. And these are miscarriages, cervical and vaginal epithelial changes, meaning the tissue changes, ectopic pregnancies, premature ovarian failure and ovarian cancer, endometriosis, bicornuate uterus, irregular menstrual cycles, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and a couple of cases of clear cell adenocarcinoma of the cervix in a young girl. And many of these, some of them, not all, were similar to questions that we'd seen from DES daughters or about DES daughters. The health questions about DES grandsons from their parents included hypospadias, infertility or sterility, kidney cysts, autism, and gynecomastia. And these indeed were some of the same questions that asked by DES sons. So some of these grandchildren concerns were heard many times over the years, some occasionally and some only once. But all of these questions were shared with researchers, particularly at the National Cancer Institute and the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences. And of course, our inquirers always asked, are these questions related to generational DES exposure? And how quickly can we know the answers? And aren't these good and complex questions? Indeed, these questions are the slippery slope of wanting to support the concerns of an inquirer without confirming that DES is specifically responsible for every adverse health effect. Asking questions is good as long as we're open to the idea that there may be conflicting findings between studies, that we may not agree with the research results, and that all of our questions may never be answered. The unfortunate opportunity of having a DES exposed population is that we may be helpful in understanding some of the effects of all endocrine disruptors through generations. Studies have found, indeed, as we've heard, that the timing of when DES is first given during a pregnancy and the total dosage can have an effect on the severity of the adverse health outcomes in offspring. And indeed, that same finding may be true and is true in this third generation. But not all studies have identical findings, even if asking the same questions. One difference, as we've talked about with our presenters, is that how study participants are recruited, whether it be by medical record review of DES exposure or by anecdotal reports from participants without necessarily having the medical records. Both types of studies are valid, for sure, but interestingly, the findings may differ because of the way a research cohort was established. The co-founder of DES Action and a DES mother, Pat Cody, used to quote the adage, "The absence of evidence is not evidence of absence," and when talking about DES health questions. All epidemiological research is a methodical undertaking, and perhaps most especially for generational DES exposure. Bob Hoover, the recently retired director of the National Cancer Institute, Division of Cancer Epidemiology and Genetics, and the NCI project officer for the DES follow-up study, called this work panning for gold. Researchers have indeed learned a lot about DES exposure, and there is more panning for gold needed with generational exposure. Every DES study almost always ends with a call for additional research. I couldn't agree more.
Family. Yeah. So as you see, there was some other uses to this drug as well. I'm about to show you some of those. But this drug was so bad, it's caused cancer in 3 generations. You know, I honestly, Katie Smoot, I can't fully prove it because I don't have no longer have access to my mother's medical records, but I am extremely suspicious as to whether or not my mother was also exposed to this drug, because many of the effects not only have I been victim to, but also my children. Yeah. So here, I want to highlight here a couple things here. This is an article, I'm going to bring it down and show you, from the American Cancer Society there, so you know where I got it from. Okay. Just want to show you that very quick. Okay. And then let's move it over a little bit. Wrong way. All right. Now this is, as it's already been discussed, DES is a man-made synthetic form of estrogen, a female hormone. Doctors prescribed it from 1938 to 1971 to help some pregnant women who had miscarriages or premature deliveries. At that time, it was believed that these problems might have been caused by low levels of estrogen in a woman's body. DES was used to correct this problem, to increase their estrogen. It was given to millions of women in the United States during this time. DES was used less in the 60s after studies showed that it might not help women carry pregnancies to full term. Later, it was learned that infants whose mothers took DES during the first 5 months of pregnancy were more likely to have problems with their reproductive systems. Remember this first 5 months of pregnancy. Okay? I'm going to tell you why that's important. Okay? A campaign was also started to tell the public later about the problems DES could cause, and doctors were urged to tell their patients who may have taken the drug. But there was no good way to tell every person who was exposed to DES. Stop right there. This is coming from the American Cancer Society. How was there no good way to tell the patients that had been prescribed this drug? It's in their medical record. It's in their medical history. In fact, many of them, or the majority of them, were still under the care of the doctors that actually prescribed it to them. But you see this little trickeration they threw in there? But there was no good way to tell every person. Do you see that? Let's continue. Many people who were exposed to DES as a fetus still don't know it because they didn't tell their mothers. They purposely didn't want to tell because this was part of the cover-up, the scam. Because if they admitted to it, and for the people that develop these cancers and different things, problems from it, then that made them liable, right? Yeah, let's continue. Who was exposed? About 5 to 10 million people are women who are thought to have been exposed to DES during pregnancy. Okay, stop right there. Let's take the top number. 10 million people, 10 million women, 10 million pregnant women. Okay? During this, 1938 to 1971, most women in America, the average, they had about 2.5 to 3 children each. So if you had 10 million women have been exposed to this cancer-causing drug that also affected their babies, or could affect their babies, it wasn't just 10 million people. Do the math. It's up to approximately or close to 3 times as that. So 30 million people, including the mothers and their infants, their babies. But then in addition to that, as I already told y'all, this effect goes into the 3rd generation, into the grandchildren. So it's more than 30 million people in the United States. Right? Yeah. So who were exposed to it? Women who took it while they were pregnant. The daughters of women who took DES or were prescribed it while they were pregnant with them. Okay? As well as the sons whose mothers took DES while pregnant with them. Okay? That's kind of where, well, I'll hold on to that information in a minute. Let's go forward. I'm just going to highlight a couple of things because women who took DES appear to have an increased risk of breast cancer. What have y'all seen over the last 20, 30, 40 years? An explosion of what? Most research suggests that the risk of breast cancer in DES exposed mothers is about 30% higher. Okay? What should women do who took DES while they were pregnant? It says here, she should also tell her children who were exposed to it in the womb, so they can start monitoring their health and having their doctors monitor and look for these things. What health problems could DES exposed daughters have? Here we go, y'all. DES is linked to a rare cancer called clear cell, or CCA. Y'all say that word. I'm tongue-tied today. This cancer of the vagina and cervix usually occurs in DES exposed daughters in their late teens or early 20s, but it has been reported as early as age 8. Okay? Here's some other, as far as that type of cancer is: atypical glandular cells, dysplasia, cervical, that word, neoplasia, that word, and the other word, lesions. Y'all see it in yellow, that's why I highlighted for you. All right? I'm not even gonna mess it up and embarrass myself today. I'm tongue-tied today. DS exposed daughters may have a vagina, uterus, or cervix with an unusual shape or form or structure. Okay, which can cause problems with them as far as their pregnancies. Okay. In addition, DES exposed daughters are more likely to have fertility problems than women who weren't exposed to DES. All right. Problems during pregnancy, premature births. Ain't there been an explosion of premature births? Tubercle pregnancies. I've known a woman that had a tubercle pregnancy. Miscarriages, preeclampsia, breast cancer. Is this ringing a bell with you ladies? They also might have a higher risk of depression. And DES daughters are likely to be younger at menopause. Ladies, is this, it goes into some other information here. Okay, hold on. What health problems could DES exposed sons have? This would be me, Katie Smooth, y'all. Epidermal cysts, which are non-cancerous growths on the testicles. Fellas, sons might have a higher risk for undescended testicles or hyperspadias, a birth defects in which the urethra opens along the bottom of the penis rather than at the tip. DES exposure to increase the risk of testicular and prostate cancer. What's been exploding over the last 30, 40 years? Yeah, family. But I ain't dropped the real bomb. I mean, this is the bomb by itself. But I'm going to drop this bomb on you. And this is where I'm getting this from. Let me move it down for you so you can see it. My source. The Embryo Project Encyclopedia. Okay? All right. Let me get it right for you. Now, there's only one highlight because this discusses and provides more information on DES. Okay? There you go. You see it right there. Right? Who's it by, when it was published, all of that. Right? Okay. Now, I got one section highlighted that has not been mentioned yet in the information. This one. In November of 1971, the FDA banned the use of DES during pregnancy in the U.S. However, that year, a study reported that DES was an effective post-coital contraceptive. Stop right there. How many of y'all know what post-coital is? Most of you ladies know, but fellas, post-coital means after sex. They were reporting that it was an effective contraceptive after sex. Okay? Spurring the off-label use of DS as what they're terming here an emergency contraceptive, but y'all know how that go. If there was a drug reported on the market that women could take even after they had sex, where basically if you ended up having unprotected sex, come on, y'all know what was happening here. This is where I believe my link, Katie Smooth link, comes in, because my mother was prescribed and took birth control for 6 years. Okay? Back in the day, before I was born. Okay? I have two older siblings. After that, she started taking birth control. And it worked great for 6 years. I wasn't there. Let's say that. I can't say if my parents was using protection other than this or not. I doubt it very seriously. Okay? And then all of a sudden, my mom comes up pregnant with Katie Smooth. Then my mom comes down with breast cancer and breast cancer-like lumps that had to be dealt with. Okay? Guess what, y'all? Fast forward, Katie Smooth is also a cancer survivor. Now this is going to blow your mind. Katie Smooth is a breast cancer survivor.
What?
Yeah, yo. I'm a living witness. Happens to men too. Could it be because of this birth control? And then you fast forward, you've heard some of the other illnesses and problems from this, including autism. What did I just share with y'all earlier in this report? One of my children are autistic. Do you see how a lot of these things link up and line up? Again, I can't prove it because I don't have access to my mother's medical records. I probably, if I really pushed legally for them, I probably could get it, but to really prove it. But whether it leads back to DES or whichever other birth control or whatever, this DS wasn't the only crazy drug during these times that was being prescribed and used that had crazy effects. Okay, family? So let's move on. In 1975, to prevent its off-label use or use for after-sex contraceptives, tongue-tied today, the FDA approved DS as a contraceptive in emergency situations. Again, y'all, you already know what was really happening, such as rape and incest. It wasn't just being used and prescribed for that. Then later that year, by 1975, the FDA withdrew that approval. Katie Smooth was already born before 1975. Prior. Okay? So, again, do your research, family. Do your research, man. There's so much. There's so much information out here. I got one more for you. This one, family, is going to be a little lengthy. Go about minutes or so. This is another clip from our brother Romeo Stewart at the YouTube channel the Justinian deception. This clip is going to explain to you guys the other meanings of the letters of the alphabet, which are hieroglyphics or signs or symbols, okay? And their connection to our legal system, the historical legal system that they're connected to. I mean, he's gonna break it down to you. Ooh, take a deep breath on this one. Clear your mind. Take a deep breath, clear your mind. If you're ready to begin to understand, a lot more of what's really going on, I got it for you right here. Okay? Don't take my word for it. Let me get it right, so be straight. All right, here we go, y'all.
The other thing I've found is that around the 1230, Accursius is the one that created the new corpus juris, the modern version of the corpus juris that we are under today. It is the modern legal system created in the Hohenstaufen reign by Accursius, which was a jurist, and he basically perfected the Justinian corpus juris into a modern day standard by using surnames to offer people the ability to act, to remain in common law, or to come over into the administrative maritime law system. And most people today believe they have a surname, and they've come across they've sort of unwittingly, I say they've been sold a lemon, but it's just some people do fine as the administrators, and other people are raped and plundered. Countries are often, in my opinion, raped and plundered by it, because most of the people have been deceived into acting as the administrator while under the belief that they are the national of their government or the national of their land, and that they are living on the lands that they feel that they own. But when you become a resident or a citizen of a foreign administrator, you are legally a resident, which is someone that lives on land that they do not own. Or they become the traditional owners, which means, the word tradition means one who has sold or given away their lands. And of course, in Australians' case, and the original Australians that were here prior to the white settlement, if they call themselves traditional, well, then they have jumped from the land up onto their ships in dry dock, their foreign corporate ships, where they may be getting some sort of a benefit out of it. And that's why they've done it. Or they may need to do it just to survive. But what if, when you're looking at the all uppercase text, so when you see a word written in all uppercase text, which is the sort of language that is used by the legalese system, what if it was what they call it, a hieroglyphic text? They actually call this all uppercase letters Egyptian hieroglyphs. It's hieroglyphic text. It's an illustrative text. It's not descriptive. This is descriptive text here, whereas this, written in all uppercase, is sign or pictures or shapes. And that's where the shape shifting comes in too. If you are the account holder of 4 or 5 different accounts, you can shapeshift from each account to each account, because the wording on the document that you thought were words were actually signs, shapes, pictures, illustrative text. Even though it may have read Commonwealth of Australia and you thought you're a part of Commonwealth of Australia, in reality or legally, if it's written in all uppercase text like it is registered on the United States Securities Exchange Commission as a company or organisation, It's written in all uppercase text, which is a picture, a shape, an illustration, a copyrightable symbol, symbolism, engraved images, the things that we'll want to stay away from by God. God means master. That's the God, the synonym to God is master. But what I've come to realize is that even from the Steiner School, when they were teaching children the alphabet, to get them in the memory, the ones that stuck out really a lot was things like C, which is the shape of cove, calm, the words that relate to calm or cove or creditor, which is a peaceful place, is the shape of what it is. I think there was another with water. Here we go down here. The W is the shape of water. So W is water because it's shaped like water. And also M for mountain, because they are the mountains. So they were teaching children to look at the letter and relate it to an actual symbol, a hieroglyph of something, which when you think of water, you can remember the water shape. It's easy because it's just like water. And same with the mountains. And from this, I started to look at, is there a system in the alphabet, in the all uppercase text, that is hidden when they, like the word sign, S-I-G-N, which I'll probably get into later, just to see or to show some of the hidden meanings when you construct a word in all uppercase text, which is a hieroglyphic text. The letters and the meaning of each letter paints quite a big picture, big symbol of what that word may mean. We just see the word and think, well, we'll go to the English dictionary and have a look what the word means, sign or whatever it is. But when you look at the hieroglyphic meaning, which is the hidden text that no one has really taught anyone about, then some of these words may show in more detail what you're looking at. I'm going to run through A. What if A stood for administration? A. And you can see the A. It's the triangle cut across the top like the $1 bill on the United States with the I inside the top little half, which means the hierarchy of the pyramid system scheme are the ones that know the reality, and all the ones underneath the A are the ones that are being administrated. A. Now, what I'm also doing is, if you keep this in mind as you're going through, then we can use this code of things to work out some of the meanings, to work out the meanings of some of the words that they're actually using, and it's quite surprising. B. Babylon. It's got the two domes when set up in laid down flat, which is debtor and creditor. And that's what Babylon's all about. It's the Bible that you get in the court is the manual of Babylon. So if you know the Bible, you'll know how Babylon works. And when you read the manual, you know the manual of your car, your boat, or your engine. You go through the manual, you will understand the do's and don'ts of dealing with that automobile or that motorbike or that boat or the engine, whatever you're dealing with, or anything, but as long as you read the manual. And you will also notice that the manual says if you don't go by the manual, you will void warranty. And this is something that I've always said about the English language. If you're going to use a language in a court document and you don't follow the manual, that's why I asked the magistrates, well, what manual did you use? So that I know if you've voided the warranty. Because if you've used a language and you're avoiding the warranty, then all your warrants that you've assumed are warrants are worth nothing. It's wiped the charge out from the very beginning. Does the charge exist? Did you construct the charge in according to the rules and regulations of the warranty or of the manual of that language? And a lot of the times, no, they did not, which voids the warranty, voids the charge. It's gone. See you later. It's a little bit deeper than that, because you've got to know who you are first. But when you start to understand this, you might start to recognize why the Christian name and the state name, or why the Christian name is so important. B, Babylon. C, for calm, creditor. A cove where the calm water is in there. So it's a symbol of calm. The creditor of a trust. The D is the one dome, one of the Babylon domes, debtor and creditor in Babylon. B's got two domes, but D, Dominion, has got the one dome, the debtor. E, equity. This is really strange because you've got one stroke, you've got three marks, which is a trust is debtor, creditor, and administrator. It's a bit like Noah's Ark, ARK, which is the roof over livestock. It's strange that. And another really strange thing about Noah's Ark is that there were three decks on Noah's Ark: the debtor, the creditor, and the administrator. Same with the animals. He brought the debtor unclean, and he brought the creditor, which was clean. Clean animals and unclean. Isn't it? Unclean animals in the dictionaries means corrupt. So when you think about debtor and creditor, think about the Christian name, John Henry, as the creditor, and then John Henry Doe. So when the police ask you for your name, you'd say John Henry Doe. Well, that's the corruption of the creditor name, because your name is only John Henry. That's the Christian name that you were given to you by Christ. But then you turned around and said, no, my name's John Henry Doe, which is the incorporation of the family name and the Christian name. The minute you've incorporated, you've created a corporation, incorporation, which is under the rules of the Vatican, which is under the rules of the debtors, which is the corruption. So they administer the lost people that are corrupt, that don't know their own name. So equity is very important. So there's three strokes in a symbolic E, or all uppercase E. But F has two strokes, and that's very important because F is for fraud. F is, or the two strokes, is like having a trust system where there are debtor, creditor, and administrator, but one of them is missing. But if you take one element out of it, the debtor, creditor, and administrator system, then the trust is no longer a trust. It's just an agreement between two parties. But if you have an office of debtor, an office of creditor, and an office of administration, and then take one of the parties outside of the office, then the actual trust exists in a form, or a dead form, of an office form, an official form, but one of the subject matters has been removed, which creates a trust, but in fraud, because it's a trust of the office of debtor, creditor, and administrator, only housing the administrator, who's a magistrate, and the debtor. The creditor he's got a choice of going from creditor or debtor, creditor or debtor, and in that is what F, fraud. And notice fraud, fiend, fake, all the fake words, all the fucked, the words that are not right start with. Even like mail, it's been franked. I wonder why, because even on mail it's got written there postage paid, but because the postage is paid has been written in the D-based language, has it been paid? It's only, or is the D-based language where it says on mail postage paid, because it's written in D-based Latin, is it telling you that the postage has not been paid? See, if you know if you know your grammar, then you can see that everything is in full disclosure. Even though you read it wrong, if you knew your grammar, you would read it correctly. G, which is like a C with a small T in it, like this. G, which is the governance, which is governance, governance of the calm water. Governance, G, for governing, which is really the T is the treasury with the C, with the calm, the T and the C, treasury with the calm, the governance. So true, proper governance is, all the G words are like that. H, hierarchy. And when you think about even the H, if you think of the old Egyptian, some of their systems where they've got the two pillars, you walk into the buildings, there's the two pillars on each side, which is the hierarchy, which is the strength holding up the system. And that's why it's shaped like an H. An I, me, one, you, I. J, that's a strange one, the joker. J is the joker, the jack, all the joker words. And a J is made up of a T, which is a treasury, and at the bottom is a little loop, which is a U, which is the underworld. So the joker is the treasury that is with the underworld, or with the joker, the treasury with the underworld, which is a joke. That's why it's a joker. The K is funny because it's like a cross cut in half with a line down the middle of it. K is kill. And killed on the cross, and it's strange because we'll go over to the cross. We'll get to that, and I'll explain what's going on there. L, Lucifer, illusion. It's the deception. It's about the deceiving of. That's what Lucifer does. He's the one that deceives and tricks, makes things not look like it should. M, of course, mountain, and M would be the dealing with the mountains and valleys. So the mountains direct the valleys. Wherever the mountains are, the valleys where the water flows, where the currency, you know, the flow of energy flows in the valleys, which are the banks, and the direction of the valleys is really where the mountains are, because water can only flow through the valleys. So we've got mountain, and I'll just to look at that, Vatican Valley. You see that? The Vatican is the World Bank. It controls the flow of water, the Holy See. That's why the V. You probably see when a lot of people are in war, victory, but what it was really meaning, or what may be, is the Vatican has won. V. He controls the underworld. He controls the banks, the banking system, the Rothschild banking system, if that's who is serving as the emperors of Rome today. Are they the Rothschilds? Are they the head of Babylon? N is neutral, which is mountain, like that, and valley joined together. Neutral, or the neutral, nothing, no, you know, all the N words. It's got to do with this, which is mountain and valley, the mountain and valley. O is the office, which is a circle. That's why when I draw those these things here, I use that as the office of administration, the office of creditor, and the office of debtor. But of course, like I say in the fraud, if we are in the debtor and we are not with the creditor, not very good with my left hand, not with the creditor, if we are just here, then the office of creditor is empty. But this trust that is being administered by this Vatican here, the trust itself in the world of the dead is still in existence. It's still operating, even though we're not there. And that's where the fraud comes into it. Fraud. P, that's plebeian, and it's strange because 400 BC, they had a system which was the Libor, the god of the wine god of Libor, Roman god of Libor, and they operated a trust law governing system, which was the same today, which is really odd because they had this was called the patrician and this was called the plebeian. The creditor was the patrician, the debtor was the plebeian, and Libor, who was the terms and conditions of the trust. That was the you could say the constitution. The administration is the constitution. It's the written contract, and of course the administrator, who is the magistrates, who are really the captains, they are on top of this administration ship system, and they make sure that everyone follows the rules of that ship. And of course the Libor code, the god of Libor, that had a system of rules and regulations, and one was the creditor and one was the debtor, patrician and the plebeian. And it's strange today that they've got the plebeian, they have the plebiscites, and if you vote in a plebiscite, then what you're saying is when you walk into the polling booth and you class yourself as the debtor or the plebeian or the one that's has the power to vote inside the system, you are the plebeian, the pleb, the debtor of the system. You are not the patrician. That was around 400 BC, and it's got its way into the governing system of today, which just, as I said, goes to show these systems are not new. These go back a long time. Sometimes in order to know the future, you have to understand the past, because what's happening in the past, if you go back far enough, then you can get the timeline and you can see what's going to happen into the future, and you can counteract this future as well. Well, just by knowing what's going to happen. The office, the P, the plebeian. The Q is strange because, I mean, the minute you question something, this office, they are sealed. When you get into an office, it's sealed, but the minute you question it, it's a line, which is a break on the office. So when you walk into the courts and everything like that, like I did, I walked in quite happily because because when the police try and put you into court, and if you don't turn up, they'll come around and punch the crap out of you, and that's what they did to me. Then they threaten you because they're terrorists. The police that operate these systems, if the system is a fraud, it's all right if it's not a fraud, then we are willing to do this. But when we're being forced into a fraud by way of terrorism and threats which is extortion, when those state police or Queensland police or any form of state police comes around and threatens you, if you don't act as the debtor and they threaten you, well then even that is a violation of the system. I think it's Article 1 of the Unidroit Treaty of Rome that it even says that this system, the Unidroit Rome Statute, is voluntary. It must be voluntary. But if you don't know what's going on, you'll have volunteered unwittingly. And then when you're in the system as a debtor, and then the police come around and bash the crap out of you, or take your lands, take your car, or do all of these things to you, you'll say, but I have rights. Well, no, you don't have rights. The thing is, you just didn't know how you lost your rights, because this is a secret system, as you can start to see. Things not adding up, or if you don't know the codes, then, you know, you got to know the code. You got to know what's going on. You got to work it out. You got to see how they're doing this. And to be honest, I think it's time to expose it, because in my case, I went to them to explain that you guys are in trouble. You're doing something terribly wrong. But I got threatened. My family was threatened. I was thrown in the watch house many times. I was so-called charged, and I'll do another segment on about what happened in that court case, because there were no charges. There were no charges, because even when I asked the magistrate, I said, "Can you read out the charges?" He knew darn well he was not going to read the charges out, because I knew that they were debased, which means criminal and corrupted, and he would have been a part of he would have been dethroned immediately from that. So what they did with me is they wiped out all the charges and basically dumped the charges back onto the debtor. They tried to make me think they assumed that I was a debtor, but I had the paperwork and the evidence that I was the creditor, and they couldn't pin the debt onto me because I wasn't in the house of the debtors. I was in the house of the creditors, which is a political stand, and a political stand is in all the constitutions, cannot be interfered with. You see that? So all the charges, the magistrate had to mitigate all the charges to nothing, and any charge that was left had to fall back onto the police and the administrator, which is the magistrate. So that's question, putting a break in the office. And as soon as you break the office, you expose the office to the F, which is the fraud. Come down to R. R is Rome. Rome owns this. The Vatican owns it. Home to Rome. Home is really just to become the creditor of the system. The Vatican operates it. This is the system of the dead that Christ warned us in, and when he was around a couple of thousand years ago, it's in the Bible, that the New Testament is really the new covenant, the new contract. The old contract set up here. The new contract is the New Testament, which is a new contract. And what Christ did in this testament, in this contract, this testament, is warned us. Of course, we've always got the choice, but he warned us that there are two standings, and if you eat from the tree of knowledge, then you will surely die. And if you find your name written in all uppercase, or you're holding any information that you're holding a name that you think is a name, such as a driver license or passport or legal title of anything, and you see a name there in uppercase, then that contains your surname or the so-called last name, written in debased Latin, all uppercase text, then you've agreed to enter into the world of the dead. You are dead. Even over here in the creditor, the name of this is the Christian name written in the dead language, all uppercase. So this is also dead as well. The Christian is dead. But what they say in this side, the creditor side, is that it already has a debtor. So you are left out as the director of it, which is, like Christ said, if you eat from the tree of knowledge, you will die. But the tree of life gives you life, or gives you the ability to direct the trust in a dead estate. You still have a dead name. Your Christian name in all uppercase is dead. But that name has a trustee, which is the Registrar General. And he is the one that holds it, and he represents the Vatican. He represents Rome. So if you understand the system, Rome and the Vatican is in one way there to protect and uphold the people. It serves the people. So Rome is not good or bad. Rome has two. It's a bit like Christ in that when he was around, he went in there and bashed the bankers, and with the big stick, because Christ had two jobs, was to keep the debtors, the bankers, in line, but also to serve the living. The Vatican who claims to be the vicar of Christ, which is the stand-in of Christ, then he has to operate the same system. He becomes the basher of the banks and any of the subdivisions of the banks. So if you hold a bank account, then you are an account holder of the bank, which is a trustee. So you step out of line and you will be bashed. So the only way to get out of that is you can't have bank accounts. It's going to be awkward, isn't it? But I don't have bank accounts. And you get used to it. You can survive. It's life. You don't need a lot of that stuff, I can tell you that. S, the snake. We've got Rome, which is the copyright owner of this system. Rome also owns these symbols. That's Rome. That belongs to Rome. S is the snake. It just looks like a snake. Snake, you'll probably know the snake. He's in the Garden of Eden. He's the one that came down and did all the conning with Adam and Eve and the snake, and he got Eve to eat the apple, which is really offered Eve the credit card, and Eve took it, and then Adam was left with the debt. That's just personal stuff. But that's what the snake is, the snake in the garden. It's the one that, they're the ones that will trick you. They're the ones you've got to watch for. They're the ones that will be the ones you... Car salesman is a snake. They're not all snakes. A lot of people want to do the right thing by you, but in general, that's what the snake is. The one that comes in and sells you the lemon, sells you a fraud over here. And the Vatican has sort of done that, sold you a fraud. The T is the treasury, the trust, like a T, like a ledger, a debtor and creditor. And people working in administration will sort of understand that symbol. U, the underworld, which is the world of the dead, which is below the surface, the under the ledger. When you get a mail, the mail is called a ledger. The articles you get in the mail are a 2-to-1 ratio, which is the same ratio as the ledger that's sits on a grave, the 2-to-1 ratio. And the text you'll see, if you go down to a graveyard and look at the graves, you'll see the all uppercase dog Latin dead ledger text. And when you get things in the mail, the addresses or your names, whatever it is, power bills, etc., they will be constructed in the dead ledger text, which is the same text that sits on tombstones and ledgers at the graveyard. So when you break the seals of those letters, you're tapping into the world of the dead, the underworld. You're breaking the seal of a coffin because they're sealed, and that's a conduct. That's what the word conduct. So this is the underworld. It operates under a different language, under a different system, and that's why documents have two languages: the common law languages of English, which operates in life or living. Then you have the all uppercase symbolic text, which symbolism. You're not to worship idols, and an idol is a symbol. So when you claim your name, what you thought was your name, written in all uppercase text, you claim not a word, you've claimed a symbol, which is symbolism. It's deceptive. Idol, you're worshipping idols, and again, you're warned in here, stay away from idols. The V, obviously, is the Vatican. It's the World Bank. And if you are not on the mountains, on the land law, which is the common law of land is mountains, and obviously water, the W down here is the water law. So if you're not standing as the creditor, then you have no power to direct the Vatican with the mountain. You're not standing on the mountain anymore. You're in the water that's flowing as the currency through the valleys. So while the Vatican can't find you as the mountain, It can control the flow of currency. It becomes the director of the bank, the director of your treasury, which is the energy, what you do, and your ownership to the land, your mineral and energy wealth. If you are over in the debtor side and not in the creditor side, you are not on the land law, the mountain, which is land. You are not on the mountains to direct the flow of the water through the valleys, through the valley of death, fear no evil, all that stuff. And this is what it's talking about. This is how deep and incredible this scam really is. So that's what the Vatican does. It becomes the administrator up here. While you're over here, you can tell the Vatican how to control or where to flow the current, because the water on the lands is yours. You own the land, so therefore you are the director of the currencies that flow through the lands. You are on the mountains. If you're not there, you are the water. And the Vatican, then it becomes the director. It becomes the mountain. And it knows that. That's why it takes that job, because it knows how to convert you from the creditor into the debtor. It knows how to do that. It's got the ability to trick and deceive you, and you'll never know what's going on. And as you can see, it's quite complex. Of course, we go down to the water, which is maritime law. This is common law, the Magna Carta, and I think just after Magna Carta in 1215, in 1230, 15 years after Magna Carta, Accursius perfected the corpus juris, which is really the law of the dead, the law of the sea. There is no footprint in water, so water flows through your hands. It's very hard to keep on holding onto it. Whereas land, you can put a footprint down and there's your mark on land. You have no mark in water, but it flows all the time, and the clever people that operate within the maritime, which is commerce and merchant banking, the bankers, and they then, like the Rothschild banking system, it's almost taken over the whole world, which is all just through trickery and deceit. Could you imagine one day the world waking up and saying, your money is actually just fraud? It is actually only plastic or paper. It doesn't represent anything because it has a grammatical glitch. And as a maximum goes, a fraud negates or vitiates a contract. So if there's a fraud on the money, then that money is worth nothing. It's a promissory note. And you got to remember that. A promise to pay is not payment. Whatever you buy with their money, it's never been paid for, so it never really belongs to you. That's why when you're on the side of the road, you say, that's my car, you can't take that. No, you did all the work for it. You were a slave, but you didn't get paid, and you didn't pay for that car because you paid it with a note that belongs to the Vatican bankers. And because the note says that it's a promissory note and not the real payment, it's not been paid in full, or paid. It's like the mail, paid in full, whatever it is. It's not, because you've been handed a trick. You couldn't read the document, so it's not paid, and that's why the police then take your property, walk in and take you home. And it's wrong because you did the work for it, but you agreed to be a servant. You serve, and servants are slaves. Slaves have no rights, and slaves can't own property. And to be a slave, to be a debtor over here, you then become a resident, as I said before, and a resident resides on land he doesn't own. So even if you say, I'm a resident, oh, okay, well, give us your land, buddy, because you just lost it because you told me you're a resident. See what I mean? Word science, that's what it is. X, you'll notice that on a banking contract, they put a cross on it and say, here, sign on the cross. And the cross is the point where you went from the creditor to the debtor. The minute you signed on the cross, that's the place where you died. Christ died on the cross. So these are the symbolic warnings that has happened. Now, what really freaks a bank out is if you say to the bank, but you already signed it for me, because a cross is also the signature of an illiterate. A cross is a signature. So when they sign that, they've already signed it. They'll be scrambling if you say, but you've already signed it. You're the one liable for the debt. They'll be scrambling to get that thing through the shredder because they know. It's obvious, isn't it? And even if you look in this big book here, the Webster's, have a look at the meaning of the cross, and it just cross. It means death. That's the point of death. It's also the signature. This cross, the Christian cross, is a symbol of death, and this cross is also a cross, symbol of death, but it's also the signature of an illiterate, sign on the cross. Why is interesting? Because it's a three-way, but it's like an inverted one. Hang on, I'll do this. It's youth, the symbol of youth. It's the beginning, and I guess it's really God, man, and the debtor. It's an upside down version. And yeah, look, another very interesting thing for the for the Israeli. You'll see this symbol here. Which is really this. Old Testament, New Testament. And when you merge those together, then you get this symbol here, which is the two trusts, the Old Testament, the Old Covenant, the New Testament. And that's what youth is. It's the beginning. So we're born into existence, I guess, or born as life, and then we are sacrificed into the world of the dead. It's sort of the Christian, we're sacrificed there, but we are looked after in that system until we turn to the age of majority, until we turn 21. And then that's the point. After the age of majority, you will become an adult or an adulterer, so that, or you go from the debtor back into the creditor as the director of your estate. You are really very, very rich, but as a creditor, but as a debtor, you're bankrupt because you own nothing. As a debtor, you own nothing. So the youth, the Y, is the symbol of youth. Young, all those sort of words that start with Y. Z is just Zion, and Zion really is the way back. And it's funny with with the letter Z, because if you're trying to nut the system out, and you want to go back to man or go back into the creditor world, a magistrate, well, it's God, man, Vatican, creditor, and debtor. So the path to degrade, the path into hell is like this. That way there. And to get back to God up here, and man here, the Vatican there, and the creditor, which is sort of Christ, and the debtor. The way back to God is this way. You've got to go back the same path. And this is only my opinion. You've got to go back to the same path. And that's why you'll notice the Z. You see that? Zion, to find your way back to God. So it's one of the, it was the last symbol that I had trouble working out. I thought, what is this? And it's funny too, because when you do turn it up on its side, it becomes neutral, and mountain and valley. So, which is the two trusts. So it's you know, it's got some meaning there. Now, S-I-G-N, and then S-I-N. Now, when you use this code, and you can use this with quite a lot of words. Just let's do office for a start. Equity, that's an E. If that was written as so we'll use this code and we'll see what this reads. The equity that is with Christ. Equity is your ownership to the mineral and energy wealth. It's your birthright. It's what equity. So the equity that is with, and I'm going backwards because hieroglyphs are usually read from the right to left, or bottom right up to the left. So when you construct the word in the hieroglyphic all uppercase text, and then for an interesting sake, just go through, use all of these meanings to see what happens with it going from the left, and would mean the equity that is with Christ is with the one that is with the fraud, that is with the fraud, that is with the office. So if the office, it's telling you that the office relates to a fraud. The equity of Christ is with the one that is with, there's two frauds here, and there's that. So what's happening is in the governing system that we're under at the moment, we can only be in the debtor or the creditor. So this office, these two here are a fraud. There is no debtor and creditor. There's only the office of creditor, the office of debtor, but we can only be one. So that's a fraud. So even the very word, see, this is where full disclosure starts to come in. Sign is very interesting too, because sign is the neutral, which is the debtor and the creditor. See, no, sorry, creditor and the debtor, which is the mountain and the sea, is with the governance of the one who is with the snake. Sign language. It's the trick that tricks us into falling into this system. We thought the sign writing or the sign language was proper English to deal with common law, but it's not. And when you take out the G, which is the debtor and the creditor is under the governance of the one who's with sign, take the G out and it's just the debtor and creditor is with the one who's with sign. This is with the governance. So sign is the governance of sin. Sin is just simply sin. Even the word snake, the equity that is with the death, with the kill, the equity that has been killed, is with the administration of both debtor and creditor, with the snake, with Satan, snake. A lot of these words in the Joker, Rome, that is with the equity, that is with the kill, is with the office of the Joker. kill Lucifer that is with Lucifer. Well, that's really dead, isn't it? Is it the one that is with the kill? But this happens with goat. It's, you know, even the word goat in the Black's Law Dictionary. Goat in the English dictionary is a goat. It's the real thing. Bah, bah, 4 legs and stuff. But in the Black's Law Dictionary, the goat is the sewer, which is strange, isn't it? The goat is the sewer, the underworld, the trust or treasury that is with the administration of the office of governance. It's the office of the underworld, or it's with governance. It's with an office, which is this office of governance, and the underworld or the sewer, which is also what goat means is sewer. We'll write that too. Rome, that is with the equity, is with the water, which is maritime law, which is with the water. You see the sewer. Rome, that is with the equity, is with the water, that is with the equity under the snake. It's another reason why I've always been, when I was studying or finding this out, I'd realised that the Kennedy kill could have only have been done from the sewer, from the stormwater drain. And I had worked.
Yeah, family. Take a deep breath. Told y'all. Katie Smooth gonna show you how far the rabbit hole goes. Okay? Shout outs to our brother Ramliam Stewart at the Justinian Deception YouTube channel. Check him out, y'all. This video clip I shared with you is from the Gods of Fiction and Government. This is the video's title. Yeah, a lot of y'all scratching your head right now like, wait a minute. Hold up. Yeah. Again, family, if you appreciate this content from One Brothas Mind, hit the like button. Share this report out on all your social media. Again, I'm going to the devil was busy today. He didn't want this information out. So if there's too much breakage in the video, this video report, I will re-upload it in a cleaner version in a few hours. But yeah, what y'all think? Let me know in the comments. Did you know all this stuff? I keep trying to explain to people, and our brother Stewart does it in his own way. He's not coming from a biblical perspective so much that he's coming from the legal perspective and tracing back how our current legal system traces all the way back to the Justinian system there in Rome and the Vatican and all this. And basically you can get there, as I've shown you guys in my previous reports in my biblical playlist, you get there from scripture as well if you follow the recipe that I show you in those videos. You want to see the recipe? Go to One Brothas Mind YouTube channel, click on the biblical playlist and start watching. You'll find where I share with you the recipe of the enemies of Yah and Yah's chosen people and who they are. who they really are, you come to the same conclusion. It's Rome. And what we understand, those of us that have done our research, is the remnants of Rome today are Mystery Babylon, which is where Rome got most of its stuff from, was Babylon. Most of its legal system and holidays and belief systems and all that, pagan gods, all that. Most of that stuff was passed down through the Babylonian Empire, which is why, well, y'all see it. For those that can see it. All right, family. We're going to wrap it up here. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this video in the comments, and we'll chop it up there. And this concludes this broadcast for One Brothas Mind. We thank you for joining us. And as a part of the new Black media, B1 choices are mandatory, and being on code is required. But never fear, Yeshua the Christ is with you always. Shalom.